Hello, welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda. I am here with my weekly wrap-up. Now, usually my weekly wrap-ups, I talk about everything that I have finished reading over the past week. I haven't finished reading anything since my last weekly wrap-up. Apparently, I was too busy filming videos because I ended up posting 5 videos last week. I hadn't planned on that, but it just worked out that way, and I thank you all for comments. I am trying to catch up. I've actually also been really busy this week, just with various things. I'm filming this on Sunday. Yesterday, Saturday, I was gone all day. So I'm trying to catch up with stuff, but we're getting there. I'd like to say things are going to calm down soon, but they aren't. They just aren't. But anyway, let me tell you about what I did yesterday. So yesterday, which was Saturday, Bookish Best Friend and I had tickets to go see a play called Primary Trust at the Portland Center Stage. It's a really delightful play. If you ever get a chance to see it, I would highly recommend it. It's interesting because we saw the play yesterday, and then I was on Facebook scrolling, and I saw an ad for the same play at a different theater. So it is being performed around the country in different places, but it's just a wonderful story about the importance of relationships and friends, and it was really good. But that's in downtown Portland. I think I had mentioned before that my nails are a mess. Look, this one isn't even painted. Luckily, I'm getting a pedicure this week, or a manicure this week. Normally, when we go down, we were supposed to go last week, which was the 18th, and we just kind of decided that was not a good day to go to downtown Portland. It was a No Kings protest. We have no problem with protesters, although I don't like crowds, but we didn't trust the other side. And so we thought we would just play it safe. We moved our tickets over to this week. Normally what we do is we meet, we have a little something in the lobby of the theater, and then we go see the play, and then we go to Powell's. However, this time we switched it up a little bit. We met at someplace else. We met at Grand Gesture Bookstore, which is a independent bookstore in downtown Portland. It's right across the street from the main branch of the Portland Multnomah County Library in downtown Portland. They were celebrating, I didn't know this, they were celebrating their first anniversary. We were there. I have been there before. I've shown a video of it before, but I did get some footage so you can see what it looks like inside. It's kind of, they've got more stuff in it now because it's been like a year. We went there because I have mentioned before, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. I have found that reading one chapter of a romance novel at night before bed is perfect, but I wanted to get more, and so we went there so I could get a couple more romances for my bedtime reading. And I'll talk more about those in my book haul, which I might be doing like next. But we went there. So I picked up some books. I did a little video. I'll stick it in here so you can see what it looks like in there. It's very lovely. Notice it is a store in downtown Portland that has a window with glass and no plywood. That exists. They're actually the only stores there that have plywood are ones where the space is vacant, and there aren't that many. I mean, don't listen to anything you know who I'm talking about says, because he's lying. He's lying about Portland. Anyway, we did that, and then we went to the play. And it just so happened that we are having an atmospheric river come through our area, so it was very rainy and windy, and we decided we weren't going to go to Powell's afterwards. I just purchased books. We just purchased books. We didn't need to. But I always take the train in to downtown, and it's a couple blocks to the theater, and it's a couple blocks over and down. And I realized I could at least get a little respite from the rain if I cut through Powell's. So I did that. I did not buy any books. I did buy a t-shirt. You will see it in another video this week, because I did do that. I also bought a t-shirt at Grand Gesture. I don't know if I'm going to put them both on, so you'll see different ones this week. I don't know. We'll figure it out. So yes, I went to Powell's without buying books, which it would be more impressive if I hadn't purchased 3 books at another store the same day. But anyway, that was yesterday. And then I came home and I tried to get some more reading done, and then I realized I hadn't finished anything this week. As I said, I've been busy this week. There's just been things going on. Also, I actually finished quite a bit the week before, so I was starting a number of new books this week. And when you read, you're a book polygamist as I am, there'll be times like that where because you're reading so many books, you probably wouldn't take you that long to just, if you sat down and read the book, but because you're reading multiple books, it takes a little longer. It just worked out that way. So I can't tell you what I finished this week because I didn't finish anything. So instead, I'm just going to go through every book that I am currently reading. I'm going to start with the one that I don't have here because it's my audiobook. And this is Finding My Way, a memoir by Malala Yousafzai. This is, we all know who Malala is. I had to explain to my husband that she's still alive. He thought she died when she got shot in the head. I'm like, that's interesting because she's written 2 memoirs since then, and children's books. So yes, she's still alive. And I read I Am Malala, her first book, not that long ago, like 2 months ago. I read it, which I'm kind of glad I did because it's really interesting to compare these 2 books together. She wrote that one when she was like 16. She's 28 now. And she's 27. Her life is very different. And also she wants to be seen differently. She doesn't want to be known as the girl who got shot in the head, although she is still very involved in her advocacy for women's education. And she has her foundation and all that. And she started schools and that's great. But she wants to also be known as just who she is. And so this book deals a lot with that sort of struggle that she faces. This is a lot about her going off to college. She went to Oxford. And she realized that even though she had gotten very high marks, she was top of her class. Well, talked a little bit about, she was the top of her class in Pakistan, and then she came to the UK and she struggled for a bit because education is just different. Like the basis of education is different. In Pakistan, it's a lot of memorization. And in the UK, it was a lot of understanding concepts. So she had to learn a new way to learn. But by the time she was done, she was getting top of her class. She went to Oxford, and even though she was top of her class, she still struggled. And I totally related to that. I never went to school in Pakistan. That was not a problem, but I had that issue going to college too, where in high school, it was a breeze. High school was a breeze, and I had very good grades. They would have been better, but there's a whole other story about that there was a cheating scandal. I was not part of it, but I was collateral damage. My GPA was collateral damage in it. It's a story. It's a thing. I'm still mad about it. But anyway, and then I went off to William & Mary, which is a university in the United States. It's the second oldest. It's in Williamsburg, Virginia. And I hadn't, because high school had been so easy for me, I never really learned how to study. So I had that struggle too. I really related to that. So she does a lot of that. She talks about, relationships, and that she's meeting, in this book, she has just met her husband, who will become her husband. So it's a very, for a very remarkable person, it's a very kind of like down to earth, intentionally down to earth memoir of her just wanting to be herself. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm about halfway through the audio. Recording this, I'm 47%. I will buy a print copy of this when it's in paperback because I want it to look like my I Am Malala book, which is in paperback. In one of the things that I read I Am Malala, I talked about this, like it's very clearly written by a teenager, which is appropriate because she was a teenager. And this is very much written by a woman in her young adulthood. And that's appropriate because that's who she is. And she's very honest about herself and her own struggles and her own shortcomings, which is something I really appreciate in a memoir. So I'm enjoying that. Okay, so that's the one I don't have here. The next one I have is the essay collection I'm currently working through. And this is The Mother of All Questions by Rebecca Solnit. Now, I know who Rebecca Solnit is. I read a lot of her stuff on social media, but this is the first book of hers that I've read. I have not yet read Men Explain Things to Me. I don't know why I have this one and not that one. Not that it matters. But I'm not that far into it. The first major essay in it is actually quite long, so I'm still working through it. And a lot of this is about silence and the importance that silence plays in upholding the patriarchy. It's very interesting. I'm kind of just reading a section of this essay a day because this one is quite long. The rest of the essays, I don't know if you can see my little tabs on here. The rest of the essays are much shorter. So once I get through this first one, I'll probably be reading an essay a day. Okay, so there's that. And then I have my March of the Mammoth books, which yes, I am still reading. And that is The Brontës, Wild Genius on the Moors, the story of a literary family. I'm a Bronte girl. We all know that. And I'm enjoying this, even though I'm a little frustrated that it is so Charlotte and Branwell centric. And I've mentioned that before. The more I read about this, the more I realize I would not have liked Charlotte in real life. She wasn't always a very nice person. Emily was also I don't want to say she was not nice, but she was not friendly. Like she was not interested in having friends. She wanted to be at home on the moors and not ever leave the moors. And I think if you understand that about Emily Bronte, you understand the person who wrote Wuthering Heights. Okay. And Anne was the one who went out on her own. The one, Charlotte, there seems to be, and I've read this in other things too, a lot of tension between Charlotte and Anne, mostly because Charlotte is the older sister and Anne is always the baby, and that's how Charlotte saw her, and Anne had to fight against that. There's also, I haven't gotten to this part in this book, but I do know this for a fact. This is what happened, is when they first had their books published, when they first wanted to publish their novels, they each submitted a novel. Anne submitted Agnes Grey, which was published, and Emily submitted Wuthering Heights, which was published, and Charlotte submitted The Professor, which was rejected. Yes, The Professor is her first book written, but her last book published. You really only need to read it if you want to be a completist. It's not good. There's a reason why it wasn't published. It was rejected. So there's definitely like a competition thing there. And Charlotte is sort of she has an air of superiority. There is definitely issues between Charlotte and Anne, which are kind of interesting to play out. Right now, I am in the part where Charlotte and Emily have gone to Brussels, and they're studying / working at this school run by the Hegers. Monsieur Heger is a very important, and Madame Heger, they're very important if you want to understand Charlotte Bronte. Their Aunt Branwell, who sort of moved in with their father when their mother died to be kind of running the house. She's died. Charlotte and Emily have come back. Emily's like, I'm done, I'm staying here. And Charlotte's like, I want to go back, because Charlotte had a bit of a crush on Monsieur Heger. And she also didn't really like Madame Heger. And if you read her books, in all of her books, all 4 of her books, there's this sort of older female character, and she kind of comes across in different ways in different books, but she's there, and she's not, I don't want to go so far to say that she's always an antagonist, although I will say she is an antagonist in Villette. In Shirley, she's just sort of like this kind of not always pleasant woman, and we won't get into Jane Eyre because that's kind of a spoiler. In The Professor, she's an antagonist. These characters are always based on Madame Heger. The male leads are always based on Monsieur Heger. And so Charlotte had her ish about the Hegers. And they, it's kind of unfair, because I think people read this and they think that they had the Madame Heger was this horrible person, and she had this, Monsieur Heger was trapped in this horrible marriage, when that was not the truth. They had a very happy marriage and they seemed to like each other, and Madame Heger liked Charlotte, but Charlotte was jealous. So as I said, Charlotte had her ish. Anyway, that's where I am with this. Okay, now I have a couple of buddy reads that I have going. This first one is The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. I'm reading this with Patrice. I'm this far. I will be done with this by the end of the month. I'm really enjoying this. I'm listening to it as I'm reading it, which I think is good, because I have a lot of books going, honestly, and it's helping me stay focused when I am reading this, because I do think if I were not doing it, and this is not a reflection on the book, this is a reflection on me, I think I might be having a little trouble focusing, considering what's going on in this book and some of the other books I'm reading. So listening to it as I read it is actually really helpful in this case. So I am quite enjoying The Poisonwood Bible. The next one I have, I'm halfway through, and this is Smothermoss by Alisa Alering, and I am buddy reading this with Jane Hunter. As I said, I'm halfway through. I don't know where this book's going. No clue. No clue where this book is going. I'm not sure if there's fantastical elements in this book. I'm not sure if it's psychological. I'm not sure, but I'm enjoying it. So as long as I understand, I at least have some answers to my questions at the end of the book, I will be happy. But it's set in the 80s in Appalachia, and it's focused on 2 sisters, Sheila and Angie. Sheila is high school, like 16, 17, I think, and Angie is like middle school. They don't really get along. They're very different. They're very, very poor. And they live in Appalachia, and they kind of live out near the Appalachian Trail. And around this time, I have no clue what just happened in the kitchen. Around this time, and this did happen. I mean, something like this happened in real life. And I'm assuming it was the inspiration for this. But 2 women were murdered on the Appalachian Trail. And in this, there's a lot of tension around finding the murderer. Now, a lot of this book so far, I think, deals with just fear that people have for different things. You know, fear about this murderer, fear that Angie is very obsessed with the idea that the Russians are going to drop a nuclear bomb on, you know, that's, if you're Gen X, you understand. There's that going on. Sheila has her own thing that's kind of going on that no one can know about. So a lot of this is kind of dealing with this like inner fear stuff. Really interesting, enjoying it. Then I have my book club book for my library book club, which I need to finish by next Saturday, because that's when my book club is. And that is We Measure the Earth with Our Bodies by this person. I'm not going to try. This is a Nepalese author. And this book she's Nepalese, but lives in Canada. And this book, it took me, I'm this far. You can see, I'm this far. It took me a little while to kind of really figure out what this book's about. We start with, in the past, 1960, a family that's living in Tibet, mother, father, 2 daughters. The mother is like a medium, like she has some sort of special connection to the spirits, in a sort of a religious way that's really, it's, you know, it's an honorable position in their community. And the girls are like, I don't know, probably the same age as Sheila and Angie in Smothermoss, and maybe a little younger. And at this time, the Chinese Communist Army comes in. And things happen, and they have to flee, and they end up refugees, and blah, blah, blah. And then you skip ahead to 2012, I think, is when the next one, and you're in Canada. And we're dealing with the daughter of one of the girls and one of the sisters, and I'm not quite sure everything that's going on there yet. But now it does very much seem like this is a book about artifacts that are really important to a culture that are then taken for the Western world to enjoy, and in the repercussions of that. That's where I think this book is going so far. It's interesting. I'm not going to say it's rocking my world so far. We'll see. Okay, then I have, I'm going to go this one next. This is another one I'm listening to as I'm reading it, and this is Gothic Tales by Elizabeth Gaskell. I am on The Crooked Branch, which is, so as I said, I'm listening to it. Oh, actually, it's not that long. I'm listening to it as I read it, and that one is kind of, it's like almost 2 hours if you were to listen to it. I haven't had that chunk of time. That's why I haven't, this kind of came to a standstill. Maybe today I'll be able to listen to that story, but I am really enjoying this. Some of the stories are spookier than others. The Old Nurse's Tale is really freaky. This does contain Lois the Witch, which I read last month, which I buddy read with Mariandra, so I'm not rereading it, but it is in here as well. And it is very good, so I recommend it. But I am enjoying this. I'm kind of becoming a Gaskell girly. And then finally, I have my romance novel that I am reading at night. 1 chapter a night. And this is the book that kind of inspired me to do that. And it's because it has 31 chapters and it's set in October. And this is Deja Brew. Romance novel. This is the 3rd in a series. I didn't realize that when I picked it up. I don't think that really makes a difference, except the world in this is a little weird. Like, it's our world. It's set in New Jersey, in our world. But there's also like pixies and mermen. So you go into this book, the 3rd book in the series, without much. I don't know what's going on upstairs. Okay, if you heard that, that was my son. And then my husband telling him to be quiet. I think if I had started at the 1st book, there'd be more of an explanation on this world than there is. But it's fine. It's, you know, nice size chapters. They're not very long. It takes me like 5 to 10 minutes to read a chapter. Perfect amount for right before bed. Romance novels are kind of low stake anyway, because they always, you're going to have a happily ever after or a happily for now ending. You know that. And that's one of the reasons why I think they're really good for me at night, because I don't have to worry that what's going to happen next. I'm also not so into it that I have to read the next chapter. This is an especially low stakes novel. Even for romance, it's especially low stakes. I will have thoughts of this when I finish it. So in my next weekly wrap up, I will have finished this, because I will finish it on October 31st. on chapter 31. And then I'll be able to tell you about it. So there's that. As for what's coming up, the only book that I know for sure is coming up is this one, How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I would very much like to be able to have read this by Halloween, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'm reading this because I want to read it. I bought this book excited to read it, and I've really enjoyed Grady Hendrix. This will be my second Grady Hendrix book this month. But also the Book Cougars, this is their fourth quarter. Is that right? Yeah, fourth quarter read-along book. And this will be the first quarter this year I'll actually be able to go to their discussion. And that is on the 9th of November. So I will have it done by then. There's time to have it done by then, although it would be nice to have it done by Halloween. But that's fine. Whatever. So that's what's going on with my week. Next week there should be, I will definitely have finished Deja, Brew, We Build the World with Our Bodies. I will definitely have finished 4 of these books, probably 5. I'll probably finish Malala by then too. So I will have a lot to talk about next week. This was one of those weeks where I'm in the middle of things. So there you go. Thank you for all of you who tuned into all of my videos last week. There was one thing I wanted to say, and I haven't had a chance to reply to this comment, but on my response to my own video where I talked about, not wanting to read books about marginalized communities by authors who weren't part of that community, Hannah's books, who is a professor, wrote a very nice comment. Go read it. But her comment reminded me of a distinction. Didn't remind me. It alerted me as a distinction I should have made when I was talking about nonfiction. When I was talking about nonfiction, what I meant was not academic nonfiction. I don't know what they're doing up there. Not academic nonfiction. That to me is something different. I have a degree in history. I've read those books. And it, to me, if I were in a class, okay, look, one of the reasons why I didn't even think to bring it up is my degree is in, my focus was in English history, specifically late medieval, early modern, i.e. Tudors. And the Tudors are really white. There were people of color in Tudor Stuart England. There were. They weren't they weren't in the group, the movers and shakers that I would be learning about as an undergraduate in history. If I had gone further, and why I didn't, that's a whole other story, in my history, then yeah, I probably would have read more about them, but I didn't as an undergrad. But to me, when you're taking a college course, your professor, first of all, you aren't the one choosing the books for the most part. Your professor is selecting the books, and they're selecting the books for very specific reasons. And so who the author is it's not really part of the equation there as far as like, are they white? Are they, whatever. Also, the books that you get in a history class in college are not the only thing you're going to be reading. You're going to be reading, for example, let's say you are taking a class on antebellum America before the Civil War, and you're going to have books, and you're probably going to have books that detail the African-American experience under enslavement. They might be written by white professors, they might not. They might be written by African-American. Doesn't matter, because you're also going to be looking for primary sources, which would be slave narratives. So the whole academic setting, that's kind of like outside of this discussion that I had. And when I'm talking about the histories of the nonfiction, I'm talking about things you'd find in your run-of-the-mill independent bookstore. And there might be a little bit of overlap between what you find in a university bookstore and what you find in a Barnes & Noble or independent bookstore, but it's not that much overlap. Not because the books are bad, just because the books wouldn't have the audience for the independent bookstore. They'll special order them if you want them, but they're probably not on the shelves. So I just wanted to make that distinction, and thank you to Hannah for mentioning that, which put it into my mind that I should have been clear about that. But I didn't want to do a response video to my response video to my own video, because that is a level of navel gazing that even I cannot fall to. So there you go. Anyway, that is my week. I will have lots of updates next week, because I will have finished a lot of these books. If you'd like to play the emoji game, you don't have to, but if you'd like to, why don't you give me, because of Deja Brew, that sounds like coffee, although there isn't that much about coffee. They talk a lot about cider and stuff, but give me a beverage emoji if you'd like. You don't have to. Thank you very much for spending this time with me. If you have thoughts on any of these books, or you want to tell me what you're reading, that's great. I'd love to hear it. Like, subscribe, join my Discord, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.